Ready, set, go. Running in the fast lane, rolling with the hit squad, shining like gold, tear up the road, lighting up the road.
NFL fans, it is time once again for another episode of the Fans First Football Show. My name is Brian Anthony Davis here. So proud to be with my friends. Jess Place is here. Nick Hogan is here. Jess Place, you can find him on Mile High Broncos. Jess, what's going on?
Well, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here as well. And Nick Hogan, how are you?
I'm not bad. The Patriots didn't, suck terribly today. They lost, but they put up a fight, which is encouraging. So I'm in better spirits than I normally am.
Well, I was rooting very hard for the Patriots, and you can check out all your Patriot information on the Fans First Sports Network on Foxborough Frenzy featuring Nick Hogan and a cast of great characters. But I was really rooting hard for them because that would have meant if they would have beaten Buffalo, and it looked like there was at a point where they could, then the Kansas City Chiefs would have had nothing to play for on Christmas Day, and maybe I can get my Christmas miracle wish and have the Steelers win a game.
No, you don't get that. That's my Christmas present. Is I don't want the Chiefs playing starters in Week 18. So you don't get that for Christmas and then give it secondhand to me later. Like that's not how it works.
No sloppy seconds for Jess. Okay, Aiden Reed is not here. He is. I believe he was at the game and he's traveling back.
We're gonna need a wellness check.
What's that?
Someone's going to have to check on him.
Yeah, there will be a wellness check on Aiden Reed. But, hey, all four of us, this is the first time in the history of this show that all four of us have had our teams lose all in 1 week. So it was a rough NFL weekend for all of us. So we're going into the Christmas holiday all as losers. But, well, I went through high school as a loser, so that's okay.
Hey, you're a great person, Brian. Like we all think the world of you.
Thank you, Jess. At least somebody does.
It's a little Christmas love for Brian Anthony Davis.
Well, let's do a quick recap of everything that went on before this game. I don't think we really need to harp on the scores. We definitely don't want to talk too much about Chargers 34, Broncos 27, Chiefs 27, Houston Texans 19, the Ravens 34, Steelers 17. So with that, those were the weekend games before Sunday. You guys have any comments on any of those games?
I was going to say, really biggest thing for me is the Kansas City game. A lot of people are still on board about the whole refs taking the Chiefs side on things. If you really break it down and look at it, the Chiefs aren't getting the crazy calls. I mean, it certainly looks like it's a little disparaging if you are not a fan of the Chiefs, which I know you aren't, Jess. But it's going to be interesting to see if these phantom calls that are all going in the Chiefs' way continue going into the playoffs and whatnot for their chances of a three-peat.
Jess, anything to say about that? Because I feel like even the announcers, the broadcast teams are getting on board with what the fans are thinking, like saying that this is just absolutely ridiculous at this point.
It is a little strange. I mean, it's more like the Chiefs' luck, and hopefully it runs out. Like I'm seeing a lot of similarities between this season and like the Broncos 2015 season, where it's just like balls fall into people's hands, calls happen, Jamal Charles fumbles a ball. The Chiefs are just getting all the breaks, and so statistically, I'm hoping that evens out, especially in the playoffs. But I mean, the problem is that teams put the Kansas City Chiefs in position to have it be a call that determines the game. And if you put the Chiefs away, no one cares about one missed call, 1 foot out of bounds, one sort of thing. It's just you have to put them away, and you can't give them a chance. The refs, can't throw them a lifeline.
Did we just have a callback to Jamal Charles, who last played in 2016 for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, well, he played for the Broncos too.
Yes,
So,
in 2017.
Yeah, and we all know how that went.
Well, that must have been a really important fumble that you're harping on it 8 years later, Jess.
No, it was very important. It was like, I think like a week 3 fumble, and it was housed for a touchdown. And the rest is history. Super Bowl came shortly thereafter.
All right, let's talk real quick about your Broncos. Are you worried?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we've done this before. I think in 2006 we just needed a win with 4 games to go to make the playoffs, and we lost all 4 and missed the playoffs. And so I'm very frightened. The Bengals, they're a crapshoot. They've gotten real hot lately. Like I heard earlier, they were like at one point 4-8, and now they are not 4-8. Now they're knocking on the door of the playoffs. But thankfully they're behind a couple other teams, so we won't get there. But they're our opponent coming up this week. So I mean they're a central focus, and it's we have 1 game to win, 2 games to do it. Will we? Will the Broncos do it? I hope so. Am I confident?
You need to bow leave down there. Come on.
Believe it or not. There you go. I'll do it for you. The Steelers and the Ravens, that's just a fantastic rivalry. The Ravens were relatively healthy in this game. The Steelers had 4 starters missing, had 2 other guys go out in that game, including Joey Porter Jr. Their defensive backfield was decimated in this game. It was a good thing that they only lost 34-17, but they hung in that game. There was flashes of light and bright light in the 3rd quarter, but it all fell apart with the pick 6. So with that being said, another rough week, 2 losses in a row for the Steelers. They live and play another day. All 4 teams have played on Saturday. Go ahead and play on Christmas Day. It will be the early game, the Chiefs at the Steelers. And then later on that day, you will have in the candy cane patches, they wore them yesterday, it'll be the Texans hosting the Baltimore Ravens. So there you go. Good stuff on Christmas Day. Luckily, it's the early game for me and not Christmas Eve, because that's the worst. I can't handle the Christmas Eve games. But a Christmas Day game, I think I can get away with a little bit more. Let's go ahead and talk about Sunday action. We'll start off with the Falcons 34, Giants 7, Michael Penix debuts.
Yeah, this one was kind of an interesting game that I think a lot of people had their eyes on, where Kirk Cousins was officially benched. And I think the news even broke that the Atlanta Falcons plan on releasing him sooner than later to save some money against their cap hit there. But that's a topic for another time. For this game specifically, Drew Lock again started for the New York Giants, did not have a great day, throwing a couple of interceptions, really could not get anything going. Tyrone Tracy Jr. with a lone touchdown for the Giants that actually got them started off with a 7-0 lead, if I'm not mistaken. And then Atlanta woke up and realized it was the New York Giants, and they've only won 2 games for a reason. And if you had Atlanta's defense going for you in fantasy, you had one hell of a day, because Michael Penix Jr. did not do a whole lot, didn't do anything too crazy, only threw for 202 yards and 1 interception, but a pick 6, and I believe it was a fumble recovery for a touchdown were enough for Atlanta to take care of business 34-7.
Just the Falcons are still alive in this whole thing. They still have to deal with the team that plays this evening, the Buccaneers at 8-6. But now you have the Falcons at 8-7 knocking on the door, and they're rooting hard for the Cowboys tonight.
Well, it's good that someone is.
That's okay. That's
it. That's
still ran in the league for nothing, folks.
What more do I need to say? I mean, it's Falcons Giants. I mean, I don't know. The Giants are terrible, and the Falcons. I mean, it's the NFC South is coming down to the wire. And does anybody care? I don't know. Maybe they do.
Do you feel like the Falcons could actually be jump started now by Michael Penix?
They could. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's so late in the season. It's like Are they going to be able to really, get something out of him? Is it going to be valuable time here to close out the season? I mean, are they going to make a playoff push with Penix? I mean, that is intriguing. Yes. I don't know. Can I just mention that I really like the Falcons uniforms today? I love the throwback red helmets.
They're gorgeous.
I mean, that's really what's occupying my brain right now. It's not so much their push for the playoffs. It's just those bodacious red throwback helmets.
All right. Just Place has been sponsored by the Clothes Unlimited. I guess I don't know.
I'm fashionista. FFSN fashionista.
So I believe with this loss and the Raiders winning today, the Giants now move into the number 1 spot. And
Yep.
that could get really exciting with maybe a former Falcon and his son might be coming to New York, but that's for another time as well. Let's go to overtime and we'll go to Carolina. I tell you what, if you just mentioned fantasy, Hogan. I have had Chuba Hubbard for the last 2 years, and he just officially sent an underdog team, my team, to the finals with a great performance today. They knocked the Cardinals out of the playoffs. The Panthers at 4-11 now, win 36-30 over the 7-8 Arizona Cardinals. That Cinderella season, well, that slipper is smashed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the big part about this was obviously a lot of stuff fell on Kyler Murray's shoulders where it was, okay, winning you're still fighting and losing you're out. And Murray just couldn't get it done when it needed to get done at the end there. We were through for 202 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 costly interception. James Conner on the ground had another phenomenal day, 117 yards on 15 carries and a touchdown. Unfortunately, I think he left the game a little bit later on with a injury, but was, I think, able to come back. But again, like you talked about in overtime, the winner there, Chuba Hubbard, scoring that touchdown to put Carolina over the top there. Bryce Young continues to impress. I know we clowned on him a whole lot earlier in the season with his benching and everything, but 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was really composed in this game and did what he needed to do to get his guys to win. So Carolina takes care of business in overtime.
Just Adam Thielen said, look, hey, we're not here for our individual stats. We are here to boost our young quarterback. Do you feel that this is a great second act now for Bryce Young? Do you feel like he might start to become the guys that the Panthers drafted?
I mean, the potential's there. It's definitely there. Does he manifest? I don't know. I can't say. It's too early in the season. I mean, it's too early in the season. It's too late in the season, early in his career. He's not going to make any statements for the rest of the year. I don't know. He could be the kind of guy that does just enough to linger around forever and just drive the fan base crazy.
That's a vote of confidence from Just Place.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Lions. They are back on track this week after that big loss last week to Buffalo at home. They go on the road, frigid Chicago. They are now 13-2 with a 34-17 win over the Bears, doubling up their NFC North rivals. Hogan.
That's right. The Detroit Lions broke I believe it was a franchise record today for most wins in a season with 13. And that is awesome to see. Dan Campbell and company deserve all the credit in the world for the performance they've been able to do, fighting through all the injuries they fought through, especially on the defensive side there. But a great, great day for Jared Goff. 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs not missing a beat with David Montgomery, his partner, possibly missing the rest of the season down there with the torn MCL. Gibbs, 109 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. It was just unbelievable. And then Jameson Williams, 5 catches, 143 yards, 1 touchdown. The long bomb, 82 yards, was just an absolute beautiful thing to see. On the Chicago side, Keenan Allen tried to match him with 9 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. But Caleb Williams, unfortunately, continues to struggle. Chicago falls to 4-11, where Detroit, again, sets a franchise record at 13 wins. Awesome to see.
Jess, do you feel that the Lions redeemed themselves and now are prohibitive favorites once again with the Eagles going down?
I absolutely do. I think the Lions are the sweetheart pick and the talent pick. What's to not like about the Lions? I mean, you mentioned the Jameson Williams touchdown. Like that was poetry in motion. That was beautiful. That was so beautiful. And like you said, Gibbs ran the rock. I mean, there were a couple situations down at the goal line where you're like, they need a Montgomery. But I mean, really, like they found other ways to get it in, and it was fine. But I think the Lions are they're quickly becoming my sweetheart Lions. I wouldn't put them in front of the Broncos, but like they are so much fun to watch that they're like appointment watching.
Denver, Detroit, DE. There you go. I mean,
there you go. Right,
you're stuck. Let's talk Colts. Staying alive, keeping ahead of the Bengals, which I like that. They are now 7-8 with a 38-30 victory over the 3-12 Titans. However, the Titans tried to storm back in this game, Hogan.
This was absolutely wild. I cannot believe the way that this game actually ended, where at one point Indianapolis was up 38-7, and I think the door was slammed shut, and everybody was like, not even worth watching the rest of this game. Tennessee apparently didn't get that memo whatsoever. Mason Rudolph, 2 touchdowns, accompanying with 3 picks. That's not going to help anything. But like I said, Tennessee did everything they could to storm back in this game, where Indianapolis looked like they were going to set all kinds of records running the ball today. Accumulatively, as a team, they rushed the ball for 335 yards altogether. Jonathan Taylor himself taking care of business and not dropping the football before the end zone. I think he learned a thing or two after last week. 3 touchdowns. That's right. 3 times he crossed the goal line without dropping the football, with 218 yards there. Anthony Richardson did not have a ton of yards in the air, but that's okay because he had 70 yards on the ground and another touchdown there. But like you said, Indianapolis takes care of business. Tennessee is still vying for a top 5 pick at this point.
Hogan, the Colts are breathing down the Broncos' neck, but the Broncos beat them last week. It's going to be pretty tough for the Colts to catch them, but the Broncos have got to win a game.
Yeah, at this point, I really don't see Indianapolis being able to overtake the Broncos, honestly. I mean, where the Colts have the coaching staff that they do with a young guy, Anthony Richardson, who's very, very unproven passing the ball. He can rush it all he wants to, along with Jonathan Taylor, which is nice. But at the end of the day, I think what Bo Nix is doing with that Denver offense is just too much for Indianapolis to overcome. And on top of that, too, I'd put Denver's defense right up there with some of the best in the league right now. They're playing absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, a little off week against the Chargers, but that being said, I don't see Indianapolis overtaking the Denver Broncos.
Jess, do you? I know you mentioned earlier you're worried because of the Bengals coming on, but handling Indianapolis, you kind of need Indianapolis to keep on winning at this point. If you're a Broncos fan, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's upsetting. Like everybody that I wanted to lose today won, and the Colts are included, and that's not cool. I don't like that. Like, you know, all of our teams lost today. Like, why can't I have nice things? You know,
my mom always asks that question. This is why we don't have nice things. So if you have me as a son or me as a buddy now or a podcast partner, that's why you don't have nice things, because I like to ruin it all. I do appreciate the fact that, but I don't think you're genuine when you're upset for my Steelers losing, and I know you're not.
Maybe.
Los Angeles Rams, my gosh, they are now a game ahead, and they are closing in on an NFC West title. They are now 9-6. They went to frigid New Jersey to take on the frostbitten Jets. 19-9 victory in this game. The Rams did enough in this game, Hogan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Kyron Williams didn't get the memo that it was frigid out there in New Jersey, and he just took the ball and ran with it. 122 yards and a touchdown in a sloppy, turnover-filled game where Matthew Stafford threw an interception there. Again, very, very pedestrian numbers for Matthew Stafford. 14 for 19, 110 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. But again, didn't have to throw the ball a whole lot when you got Kyron Williams doing the things that he's doing. Aaron Rodgers on the other side there chucked the ball around a little bit for 256 yards and a touchdown, but no real running game to speak of for the New York Jets. They fall down 9 points scored total to bring their season total 4-11. It's not looking good for New York, especially with the turmoil between the coaching and the GM search and everything. But like you said, LA's coming on hot at the right time. Watch out for them in the playoffs. They could be scary.
This is a team that was 1-4 at one point, 8-2 over their last 10 games. absolutely incredible what this team is doing. Jess, do you think they could be a tough out in the playoffs for some of those top tier teams?
Well, I don't know. I have to check the Madden ratings and talk to Woody Johnson about it, because that's where I get all my insight and intel. Even though I have the world's research at my fingertips, I just rely on Madden. So no, the Rams, yeah, they can make some noise. I think they're going to be an early out in the playoffs, but stranger things have happened, and they were irrelevant and toiling away, and they have climbed back in. I mean, how many times have we heard that stat? Like, if you go 0-4 to start the season, you have like a 0.0006% chance of making the playoffs, or something ridiculous. And here they are knocking on the door. So more power to them. I think it's great. I don't think they're going to go very far, though.
Here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to go back to Hogan on this one. Do you feel going to play in frigid New Jersey will help them if they do make the second round? Because now in the first round, it looks like right now they're projected to have a home playoff game, albeit it's going to be against a team like either Minnesota or Green Bay at this point. So that is going to be a very tough game, but it will be at home. We saw this before with the Seahawks and the Saints way back when. Just the fact getting that home game helps you out so much, and like it did that season with the Seahawks over the Saints. So I'm wondering here if this is a case where they could stun a top tier team, Hogan.
I think the potential's there. I mean, it's kind of unlikely, where obviously they've been banged up a little bit, and obviously their defense is missing a huge component named Aaron Donald, who's no longer with the team. I mean, that was just, that name alone struck fear into every offense that went against him. But honestly, with Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and the way that they're rolling right now, I would never count them out in any situation. But like you spoke to, home field advantage is such a huge thing, especially in the NFL playoffs, where it's not only that, it's vying for that bye seed, where we were talking pre-recording there about potential between Minnesota and Detroit. Actually, if they both win out next week, it's going to come down to week 17 to determine who's the number 1 seed and who's the number 5 seed. So like you talked about, anything's possible, but I would never count the Rams out.
You can't. Let's go ahead to a game of the week candidate here. The Washington Commanders come back with 10 seconds left in this game to stun Zach Bond and the Philadelphia Eagles, and our very own Broad Street LinkedIn, Aiden Reed, who was at the game. The Commanders are now 10-5. The Eagles are now 12-3, 36-33 in a final where Jalen Hurts went out early with a concussion, and Kenny Pickett couldn't stifle a team that turned over the ball 5 times on the opposite side.
Yeah, absolutely wild in this one, where it was just back and forth all the way to the very end there. Jaden Daniels is just, putting a bow on this season with making a name for himself. It's absolutely wild to see what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands. Between tossing it around, he threw the ball 258 yards, 5 touchdowns. It was 2 ugly interceptions that accompanied those 5 turnovers you were talking about, but he also ran the ball 9 times for 81 yards. He is just such a dual threat quarterback with what he's able to do. And on the other side there, even with Jalen Hurts getting hurt early on and Kenny Pickett coming in, Saquon Barkley continues to do what he can on the ground, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in a losing effort. But man, oh man, he is doing everything he can to win that MVP award at this time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this loss affects the Eagles going into the standings with the playoffs coming up soon.
Yeah, Jess, with Hurts going out, if he cannot clear the concussion protocol next week, they're going with a guy who Eagles fans do not trust. Well, Pennsylvania football fans did not trust. That's why the Pittsburgh Steelers traded him away after only 2 seasons in Pittsburgh. So could the Eagles be in trouble here? They're making the playoffs, but could they be in trouble?
They're a force, and yeah, they may not end up winning that number 1 seed overall, but I think they're going to be just fine. I want to talk about the Commanders. Like last week, you asked me, you're like Jaden Daniels, offensive rookie of the year, and I was like, yeah, him and Ha. And I honestly, I think this game is the one that is going to put him over the top. Like he continues to impress, and yet unfortunately, Bo Nix had not a great game against the Chargers and not a great game against Indianapolis in that second half. So I think that unless something catastrophic happens or something amazing happens, I think Jaden Daniels will be your offensive rookie of the year.
All right. A fantastic game there. It's going to be amazing to see what that team does in the playoffs. It looks like this victory helped them clinch, if I'm not mistaken, help them get in. I believe that they are now in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you guys are looking at me a little funny. Am I wrong here?
You're talking about Washington, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe they are at 10-5. I think they're officially in the playoffs.
All right.
I thought you were talking about the Eagles. That's why I got confused. I was like, well, the Eagles are definitely in.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take a break. We will be back. It is the Fans First Football Show on the Fans First Sports Network, Week 16 edition. We are back here on the Fans First Sports Network. It's Week 16. My name is Brian Anthony Davis here on the 22nd of December. Is that correct? Am I correct on the date?
Yep.
It is the 22nd of December. So it's officially winter, and the playoffs races are going down to the wire in some fashions, and it's going to be exciting to see. These games on Sunday and over the weekend had a lot to do with making it even tighter and making the next 2 weeks really exciting. And make sure you check out your favorite team, their affiliate here on the Fans First Sports Network. We have right now, he has a bye week this week. It is Aiden Reed, who went to the game, and he's driving home right now, probably in silence, just cussing out Kenny Pickett. And but he is praying to Zach Bond. He has a Zach Bond bobblehead, I'm pretty sure, or a McFarlane figure or something. They don't make a McFarlane figure, but I have a feeling that he fashioned one out of an old Bill Romanowski one and just changed 53 and painted it green. So I knew Jess would laugh at that one. So let's go ahead. And we also have Jess Place here for Mile High Broncos, who love the Romanowski mentioning. And that's the only fan base that loves Romo. And then there's Hogan of Foxborough Frenzy. Good to see you here, Hogan, as well. Let's go ahead. Let's keep it on going here on the Fans First Sports Network, Fans First Football Show, as we're going to go ahead and talk now a hot team all of a sudden. Jess mentioned it earlier. They were once 4-8. They are now 7-8 with a 24-6 win over that other team from Ohio, Cincinnati Bengals, 24, Browns 6.
Yeah, and this one, it was kind of interesting where Cleveland decided to not go with Jameis Winston, famous Jameis. They went with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, man with 4 different names as far as I can tell at this point. But he was not enough to take down Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Like you said, they're coming on hot at the right time. Joe Burrow is quietly having his best season ever as a pro there. Today, he threw the ball around 252 yards, 3 touchdowns. And all those touchdowns, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins got in on the action there. Chase Brown had himself a pretty decent day, 18 carries, 91 yards. But then on the Cleveland side, in the absence of Nick Chubb's injury, Jerome Ford is doing everything he can running the ball over there, 11 carries, 92 yards, and a lone touchdown for the Cleveland Browns today. But yeah, Cincinnati's looking to make that playoff push, where Cleveland is just looking forward to the draft next year.
Jess, can your Broncos win a game to knock this team out? Because I think Burrow to Chase right now, one of the most fantastic duos right now in the National Football League.
here we are again at the end of a season, and the Broncos are going to play the Bengals, and the Bengals have this kind of strange propensity to make big mistakes in these late games against the Broncos, be it a ball hiked over a head or a missed extra point that comes back to haunt them. For some reason, they struggle against the Broncos late in the season. So I think the Broncos do pull this out against the Bengals come next Sunday. But I am quietly alarmed that Joe Burrow, 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like it's not so quiet, Hogan. This is not a secret. He is dealing, and they have struggled, and they are getting hot at the right time, which terrifies me. They are down the ladder of the in the hunt teams, but they're the one I'm most afraid of.
All right, the team with the most resiliency here, the Minnesota Vikings, beat the Seahawks on the road, and they were losing in this game at one point. They win on the road in Seattle, a very tough place to play. They are now 13-2 after a 27-24 victory. The Seahawks are still hanging on, trying to go ahead and get a Rams loss and get a win to get back closer to making the playoffs, but they only have 2 games left in the season. Hogan, what do you make of the Vikings? Because I tell you what, they lost 2 in a row. We were writing them off, and they're so hot once again that this is a team that now you don't have just one number 1 receiver. You've got 2, because Jordan Addison is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, this Minnesota Vikings team is insanely dangerous as far as I'm concerned when it comes to what they're doing with Sam Darnold specifically. He just looks so good. I talked about Joe Burrow having a quiet season. Sam Darnold, again, we were talking about him potentially MVP in the first half. Like you said, where they dropped off a couple of losses there, but today he did not drop off. 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson is just a god. He is insane to watch play the game of football. 10 catches, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner at the end there, which was just incredible to see. And like you said, no disrespect to Jordan Addison, had a quiet day, 5 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. But they are firing on all cylinders, defensively, offensively, and Seattle's no pushover. I mean, they started off pretty hot too. I believe they were at least 4 or 5-0 at one point. And Geno Smith, showed how gritty he was playing in this game today, where he got injured, banged up last week. 314 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And it was in a losing effort, but Seattle is still one of those teams that I think a lot of people don't want to see in the playoffs if they're able to sneak in. Yeah,
they still have those 7 losses. They did, to help you out with that earlier comment, they did start off 3-0 on the season, but they are a tough team, especially if you have to get them up in Seattle. But Minnesota right now, Jess, these guys won't go away. It's a shame that they're hanging around in the same division as the Detroit Lions, because they could be the cream of not only the NFC, but the NFL.
I just am surprised at the season that Sam Darnold is having. Like I never in a million years thought he would thrive there like he has. It's something to see. You hear like, oh, Sam Darnold's coming to your team. You're like, and very few people would get excited about that before this season, and now it's like, holy cow, he is a contender.
Yeah, you know what? I was so disappointed when the Jets picked him up, because I was glad the Browns didn't pick him up. I thought he was going to be the next. I thought he was going to be a guy like Joe Burrow, even though Joe Burrow came behind him. But I thought he was going to be the next big thing. I love seeing Sam Darnold, no longer seeing ghosts and now seeing nothing but wins up in Minnesota. So it's Hogan smiling on that, because he knows that his team made the Jets and Sam Darnold see ghosts way back when. I believe that was 2018 or so.
I'm starting to think that the Jets aren't that great of a franchise.
Well, that's true too. That's
I'm not disagreeing.
It looks like right now.
I mean, am I the first one to discover this?
Yeah, Hogan's known it a while.
Yes, I have, and I appreciate every second of it.
Is that the team that you abhor more than anybody?
Oh, yes. They're my number one. I can't stand them, especially during the days of Spygate with Mangini and all them. I just could not. And Sexy Rexy, I wanted to, anytime we beat them, it was just like, oh, chef's kiss. And especially this year where we knocked him off in that game where, like I said, it might have cost us the number one pick. I was like, you know what? If we're going to lose a draft pick to beating the New York Jets, I am more than okay with that because I hate the Jets.
Yeah, it's the pride in winning. And so, Jess, let's go ahead and that's absolutely hilarious. Just let's go ahead and go to the next game here. It's a team that I know you abhor. They went ahead and they ruined their number one draft choice, chances possibly. The Raiders beating the Jaguars. They are now 19-14 winners, and they were 3-12 on the year. But if you're a Raiders fan, you don't care. You got the victory. What do you think, Jess, when you see a game like this between a team like the Raiders and the Jags that doesn't really help them when it comes to a draft pick, but it's a pride thing to cheer for a win for that team, right?
I mean, you gotta love it as a Broncos fan. Like, the only time they win is when they can blow up any chance of getting any CU buff on their team. Like, they were either first or second pick overall, and as of right now, Tankathon has them at 6. So they tumbled 4 or 5 slots. I don't remember.
They were number one.
They were number one, so they tumbled 5 slots for just one win by only 5 points. That's 1 slot per point. I did the math there on the fly. I think it's great. Like, you could not ask for better. And is there anything more Raider like than this? Like, winning the one time that they absolutely can't win?
There's nothing more Raider. That's true. Hogan knows what you're talking about here because he just talked about the Jets. It's the same thing.
It's exactly the same. I don't care if we lose all the games. We have to beat the Raiders. Have to beat them.
I understand completely, and that's why we have a phrase in Pittsburgh: when it's brown, flush it down. That's a Browns thing to do, and it used to be, that's the Bengals being the Bengals, but now the Bengals are starting to come back. Hogan, this game here, Aiden O'Connell looked bad the two possessions, and then he put it together. He had a pretty solid game as a signal caller for the Raiders.
For sure. And a big help with that, obviously, was the presence of Brock Bowers, who, again, is going to push Jaden Daniels, I think, for that Offensive Rookie Player of the Year. 11 catches and 99 yards, putting the team on his back receiving-wise. He is just a beast down there for Las Vegas. But, yeah, the Raiders obviously taking care of business. On the other side, though, with Jacksonville, I got to show all the love in the world to Mac Jones for, again, losing another game, which he was so famously known for in New England. I love that he's still doing it for Jacksonville because my New England Patriots moved from the 3rd pick overall to the 2nd pick overall. So we just need the New York Giants to take care of a couple things, and then I'll be even happier going into the offseason.
It's funny. I know exactly what you're talking about because I was just relishing the fact that Kenny Pickett blew that game for the Eagles today. Did he absolutely blow it? No. But he was not. They had some really nice leads in this game and blew it. And it's nice to see that the guy that your team has given up on, that now they're not feeling as bad about giving up on that player. And, it sucks to say that about a player because they have hopes and dreams too. But I get the Mac Jones diatribe for you.
I think the big thing, though, that I do want to touch on really quickly that I forgot about was Brian Thomas Jr., I believe, is the first Jacksonville rookie ever to eclipse 1,000 yards receiving, and he did that today with 9 catches and 132 yards and a touchdown. So as much as it might stink for Jacksonville right now, they have one extremely bright spot on their team there with Brian Thomas Jr. He looks like he's the real deal.
And the good thing is they're going to get Trevor Lawrence back next season. And so you're not looking for a quarterback in this draft. You can go with a great player. So if a guy like Travis Hunter ends up in Jacksonville, then they might be in better shape here. So let's go ahead and move on to another team that has had a terrible season, but starting to look good at the end, get a couple wins here and there. It's the Dolphins. They're now 7-8 on the season, 29-17 winners over the 49ers today in Miami.
Yeah, I think the sky is officially falling out for the 49ers there, where they were informed before I think the game started that they were officially eliminated from the playoffs. And on top of that, too, Brock Purdy is just, he's in rough shape going into what is potentially a contract year for him, where he threw the ball 313 times, 313 yards, not times. That would be an absolute record if he did that. 313 yards. 2 touchdowns and 1 very, very costly interception that actually was on the drive where they were trying to come back and win it at the end there. He threw the interception before Devon Achane absolutely took off to the races there to seal the deal for the Miami Dolphins. So San Francisco, not a great day. George Kittle had 8 catches, 106 yards, and Deebo Samuel Sr. got into it with 7 catches and 96 yards. But Miami with Tua over there, he just got, like I said, he got it going to Devon Achane, 17 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown that, like I said, sealed the deal. And Devon Achane actually led the team in receiving as well, 6 catches and 70 yards. So Miami's trying to put things together. I think it's a little too late for him at the end, but obviously this could be a good jumping point going into next year if they're able to continue that success.
All right. So we have 2 more games that have yet to be determined. You have right now the game going on as we speak. It's Tampa and Dallas. And then tomorrow evening, which you might be listening to this on Monday. So tonight on Monday Night Football, if that's when you're listening, as I try to break down the fourth wall here and just ruin all of the illusion. So what's going to be happening in that game? It's going to be New Orleans and the Green Bay Packers. Let's look ahead before we do our team of the week. Let's look ahead to next week. Some interesting games on the schedule here. I'm going to start with you, Hogan. What game are you most looking forward to next week? And you can't say Chargers at Patriots.
Well, no, I'm not looking forward to that one at all. Unfortunately, before the season started, if you had told me that the 49ers were going to be out of it at this point, I wouldn't have believed you, and I would have been absolutely looking forward to the Detroit versus San Francisco game on Monday night. However, with them not really contention, I'm going to be fascinated to watch the Cowboys and Eagles game. And the reason why I'm interested in that one specifically is, like you talked about earlier, the health of Jalen Hurts, whether he's able to play in this game. Because if he's not able to go, it's going to be Kenny Pickett versus Cooper Rush, which is going to be very interesting divisional matchup. You know the Cowboys want to spoil the Philadelphia Eagles going into the playoffs there. And if the Eagles aren't able to take care of business, it's going to make things very, very interesting with the Commanders kind of nipping at their heels now with that win today. So that's a game that I'm going to be focused on next week for sure.
Jess, I am going to suspend this and say you can pick your own team's game because I would have picked it as one of the most fascinating games next week. Would you agree that the Broncos at Bengals is just huge, not just for fans of Denver and Cincinnati, but the entire league?
Yeah, Denver wins. The wild card hunt is over. It's all three slots are filled. But yeah, I was clicking around, slightly filled with horror that you wouldn't let me pick my Broncos. And there's nothing else I really get excited about. The season begins and ends with this Broncos-Cincinnati matchup because there's only one game left after that game, and that's against Kansas City, and that's going to be a tall order. Hopefully they're benching all their people. Yeah, I mean, if the Broncos want to go to the playoffs, they have to win this week because the last game of the year is not a cakewalk, although it might be.
All right. Even though I am intrigued by the Ravens at the Texans, I really have my eye. I mean, because that's selfish because I'm going to be intrigued by that game because it has a lot to do with the Steelers. But if I look at the NFL as a whole, I think the game to watch is a 1:00 Fox game next week. 10-4 Packers at 13-2 Vikings. That could set up, if the Vikings win, like you mentioned, that could be all the marbles next week. The Vikings and the Detroit Lions. And I believe that game is at Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a great game going into that. The Packers are not ready to fold up their tents yet either. So this is going to be an absolutely fantastic game to watch. Green Bay and Minnesota batten down the hatches. So with that being said, fellas, let's go ahead and get your team of the week. We will start with Jess.
Let's go Raiders! Woohoo! Yeah. Like I said, I had that game circled from the beginning of the week, and I'm like, if there's one game that the Raiders need to lose, it's this one, and they proved that they are going to Raider this sucker right to the end of the wire, and it's great. I love it.
All right, Hogan. What about you? Who's your team of the week?
I'm actually going to go with the divisional opponent that took on my guys today, and that's the Buffalo Bills taking down the New England Patriots. Buffalo got punched in the mouth to start this game where New England got up to a 14-0 lead, and Buffalo found a way to crawl back into this game any way they had to. Josh Allen did not have a typical Josh Allen MVP type game, and they managed to pull it off defensively and every way else that they could and took care of business 24-21 against New England. So give me Buffalo Bills as the team of the week.
All right, I was looking at the Falcons. I was looking at the Packers here. I was even looking at the Colts, but I cannot ignore the Washington Commanders. I don't care if Jalen Hurts gets injured in this game. The Commanders showed who they are and who they can be in the future, that they are not, even though they're not ready for complete prime time yet, they are going to be a playoff team, it looks like here. And they do have who I think is the prohibitive favorite right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year in Jaden Daniels. So just fantastic game for the Commanders, taking down the Eagles 36-33. Hail to the Commanders, something, something. All right, I don't know the theme song that well. So with that being said, guys, it has been a fantastic week. Before we get on out of here, I am not going to assume what holiday that you celebrate. All I care about is whatever holiday both of you celebrate. I hope it's a fantastic one with friends and family. I've got to tell you, this entire season has been a blessing because this is the first time we're doing the Fans First football show, and I feel like I just don't have new colleagues. I have new friends who I really enjoy hanging around every single week when we get an opportunity to do this. So Just Place, love you, buddy. Nick Hogan, adore you, man. Thank you so much, guys. Aiden out there, when you come out of that Philadelphia coma, you're a boy too. We love you, man. So happy holidays to whatever you celebrate, and may it be a safe and happy one. And then we're going to go into a new year together on the Fans First football show. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you guys.
Right back at you, Brian.
All right. For Just Place, for Aiden Reed, who is not here, and for Nick Hogan, my name is Brian Anthony Davis. This is the Fans First Sports Network. Happy holidays to all of you out there. We cannot do these shows without you. We are blessed that you find us wherever you download your favorite podcast every single week. Please tell your friends and family about it. And all I want for Christmas is you. So with that being said, we've got one last thing to say to you. Yes, you, Jess. One last thing to say to you, and it's as simple as this. We got two words for you. Go
football.
Aw.